This is the final presentation for Capstone 1, and the goal is to bring the Whitley County Public Library into the 21st century by Rachel Meadors, which is me. First of all, what's the goal? There are an estimated over 115,000 public libraries in the United States, and this could be considered competition, therefore which would be seen as motivation to begin a big update to the library. The library itself has been able to bring updates to itself. It's not necessarily archaic, but it's not quite modern either. And so most of the aspects of the WCPL have been updated. Examples would be the addition of e-resources in a new database, which includes e-books, e-audiobooks, and free music download options available, all with the patron's library card. Now, the e-books and e-audiobooks are together via the use of Overdrive, which could also be accessed through Libby. These are the same database. Then, in the nature of free music downloads, this can be seen with Freegal, which is a separate website, not necessarily affiliated with the library, but an extension. The ultimate goal is for the technology within and associated with the library, this therefore Freegal and whatever, to match the update to the same degree that the digital content presents. So an overall update for technology within. How do we achieve this? How is this done? There will be several updates or replacements that will take place in the library, specifically in the areas of hardware, software, website, database, and security and backup considerations, not necessarily in that order. Each update will be significant to each specific area and will be able to play a part in updating the library significantly in order to increase foot traffic for stats, the stats that affect the funding that the library would receive, and ultimately bring the library into the 21st century. And I don't know why that is there. Oh. So first of all, the components of the update. First of all would be databases. Now, as previously mentioned, they would not necessarily be in this order, but database would not be a bad place to start, as that may take quite a while to have done. First of all, the entire database of the Whitley County Public Library would be split up into 3 main tables that would comprise of patrons, main library items, and e-resource items. Patrons would be made up of patron data, including information such as library card number, last name, first name, date of birth, address, phone number, email address, and patron type. The primary key of this table would be the library card number, as each patron has their own unique library card number. Patrons may be connected, as in a parent or guardian can be in charge of or responsible for a juvenile patron, but they would each have their own unique library card number. Therefore, its serving being a nice way to serve as a primary key. Main library items in e-resources will be made up of data about items in each library, including barcode number, title, item type, genre if applicable, author name if applicable, and the year published/released. This is in the interest of differing between books and movies, as there are no movies in the e-resources. So the genre and author name would only be applied to audiobooks and or books, or e-audiobooks and e-audiobooks as it were. The primary key for each of these tables would be the barcode number, as each item has its own unique identifier of the barcode number. This is sample data of what a patrons table would look like in Microsoft Access. The sample data is just of 3 of the patrons. The library card number serving as the unique identifier or the primary key for the table. That way, if somebody were to present with a library card and it was scanned into the system, it would be able to bring them up immediately. The information required for patrons would be library card number, primary key, last name, first name, their date of birth, their address, phone number, email address, and patron type. The date of birth is put in place to automatically determine the patron type. This can be covered a little bit later in application software, but it would automatically generate what type of patron type this person would be it a juvenile, adult, or senior citizen patron. This is sample data for main library items within the library, and there is some sample data of To Kill a Mockingbird and such books as well as the movie. And the information required for these would be the barcode for the item, which is, of course, the primary key, the title, item type, author name, year published. And I've neglected to add genre to this database, but it would be included there as well. And the author name would only be applicable if it is a book item that would have an author name. Also, a way to get by this with a DVD would be to put director name, but that may be too large of a project for it to even matter. E-resource items are only ebooks and e-audiobooks. So the items required would be barcode, primary key, the title, item type, author name, and year published. I also have neglected to add genre to this sample data, but it would be there included as well. So all of these fields would be required, as all items within the e-resource database would be books and or audiobooks and would have this type of information. This, of course, can be expanded to add page count. If you wanted to be very specific with your item type or genre, you could, but this would be the most basic stuff that is required for the items. And the sample data provided is an example of how data regarding each item would be sorted. There also isn't much complexity regarding the relationships between the tables, as it would just be a one-to-many relationship between patrons and main library items, as one patron can have multiple books or movies checked out at once, up to 10 items of course, but one item can't be checked out by multiple people at once. It can, of course, be checked out by multiple people, but not quite at the same time. It's the same relationship between patrons and e-resource items as well. I'm not quite sure, honestly, how it works when a patron has multiple items between their account in the library, the main library items, and their e-resource items as well. Excuse me. I don't know how one could affect the other, but as far as I'm concerned, you can have up to 10 items on each account, and it doesn't really affect anything. On to the webpage. Being frank, the current website for the Whitley County Public Library is far too busy and confusing, and is also not very user-friendly. A nice way of me saying that it's very ugly. It's functional, and can be confusing to some patrons, as they may not be able to find exactly what they're looking for, which may be the card catalog or access to the e-resources. These patrons are most commonly elderly people, and or people who may just not be very familiar with how to search items. They may be easily confused. The redesign would have different pages for different resources in a navigation page, allowing for separation of different departments, as well as clear links to all of the e-resources all in one place. This would be so that if you were online on your personal computer, go to whitleylibrary.org, you could see exactly where you wanted to go. It wasn't filled with a mishmash of different links and colors just shooting out at you. This is an example here on the top left of the current library page, and it's just very bright, very garish, very confusing. In the bottom right, there is a wireframe for what the new library page would look like, library website would look like. Home page, there would be a header at the top, there would be a navigation pane to the left, and a footer at the bottom. These are the finished pages for the new library page. To the left, there is a home, e-resources, genealogy, children's, FAQ, and not pictured would be a catalog button. These are clearly marked and allow for people to see exactly where they want to go. At the bottom right, there is the e-resource page showing the items that are available at WCPO. There's a short summary for each of the items available and clickable photos that would take you directly to where you want to go, which is Overdrive, Libby, RB Digital, and Freegal. Overdrive and Libby are the ones with ebooks and e-audiobooks and are the same database, just different applications and websites that may make it easier for some patrons. RB Digital is another separate e-audiobook selection, and Freegal is for music. There's these 6 total pages for the new website, which would be Home, E-Resources, Genealogy, Children's, FAQ, and Catalog. All are designed similarly to allow for uniformity and simplicity, which is the ultimate goal of this entire redesign for the library. All have a footer section that includes the library's contact information if there were still questions that the website hasn't been able to answer, such as hours, which are posted, but people sometimes don't look at things and may require having a phone call, and sometimes it's just easier to talk to a person. All this information is provided at the bottom of the page so that people could call and ask questions if they needed it. This is for the overall purpose to offer a place for patrons to have a quick access to the services that they so frequently use. In terms of application logic, the fanciest thing on the market is not the most necessary thing here. The ultimate goal is for something that can withstand daily usage without crashing, ideally, and is able to hold and recall copious amounts of data. The goal is a matter of simplicity, as most things involved with the library currently are far too busy and confusing. The application will be browser-based, which allows for more storage and makes it more accessible to employees, as the only thing needed is a device with Wi-Fi capabilities in order to access the application. The application would also be much more toned down in comparison to the current system. This is to encourage simplicity and avoid confusion among employees. The current system is far too busy, much like the website. Too many links, too many places that'll take you to the same place, and it's far too busy, and most of the staff are elderly, and it could become confusing for them. This is to allow for all the necessary pages to be together on one platform. Pages including a check-in, a check-out, a catalog quick link, and a page for inventory purposes. The check-in page would also serve as the home page for the software so that items can be checked in quickly, and the checkout page would have a search so that patrons can be looked up and their items can be checked out. The checkout page would require that patrons are searched either by library card number or their last name, first name. This order would allow for the database to find them much more quickly. This is a markup of what the application logic might look like. To the left would be a sample of the home page with the search bar in the top right. You would have to search last name, first name, allowing for patrons to be picked up quicker. To the left, there's a navigation pane, which is your check-in, your check-out, catalog, and inventory. I was unsure if they would be the same tab, but have decided that they would be 2, as pulling up the catalog would be much more important out in the fly than to have the inventory pulled up. To the right, there is sample data of what a patron's page might look like. At the very top, you can see that their name is displayed, and the patron type is right there along with that. The date of birth is also there, and other information such as phone number and or address would be present as well. In the top left of that, there'd be a patron picture. This is also to ensure that we are checking out the items to the person that says that they are. That was a confusing sentence, but yes. Item types would be presented down at the bottom right left. DVD, graphic novel, and DVDs are shown there. The item ID would be presented on the far right so that it could be shown. At the bottom, there is a chance for an override password when there is too many of one item type being checked out to one patron. The DVD limit would be 3, and if there were more checked out, the system, the software, would say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? And it would give you the chance to override the password. This is just to call the attention to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do. In terms of hardware, as a resource to the public, the WCPL would certainly need to invest in some reliable hardware. First of all, the need for computers is immense. There are several that are available to the public that would need to be acquired, and there are also the several that are needed for the employees as well as the computers available in genealogy. There are currently 10 computers that are available for public use in a lab to the left of the front desk. There are also 4 computers that need to be used behind the desk, as well as 2 in genealogy and 3 downstairs in the children's library. The new software for the library doesn't need any specific type of operating system to be accessed, as it's browser-based, allowing it to be accessed from any kind of device. That being said, I would recommend Microsoft operating system for all devices, as it may be the most familiar and easier to use. This is coming from a Mac user that Microsoft is recommended for the library. More people are familiar with it from being in school, and it's a very familiar operating system. Therefore, it's the right choice for the library. In terms of specialty equipment needed, the library already has things such as scanners and the microfilm equipment for the genealogy. These would work with any standard computer tower with standard USB ports. There's also the matter of there's a Google Earth station in the library that would only require a standard computer and a larger monitor to allow for only Google Earth use. A potential idea that could happen at the library would be implementation of a self-check-in station. This would only require a computer and a monitor so that patrons could check their items in themselves so that employees could get to putting items back on shelves quicker. This would only be applicable to books, as people turning in DVDs would maybe not have the disc in the DVD upon returning it. This could just cause problems with theft and or confusion. Security and backup. There's a lot of information stored in the WCPL, both in the form of item information and patrons' personal information. While there is not very serious information, such as credit card information and or social security numbers, this information should obviously be protected, as it's personal information. The best option in preserving this information would be implementation of a firewall as software to protect patron data that is stored in the new application logic for the library. This is best for the library, as the software would exclusively be accessed at the library on the private Wi-Fi connection designated specifically for the front desk computers and staff's personal devices. That means that there's very much of a slim chance of anybody getting their hands on this information, but if anybody were to crack the code, the firewall would be a nice failsafe to protect the information. For patron data that is being stored online, there would need to be backups performed to ensure that the patron data is not lost. These will be done weekly, automatically, as well as another monthly, manually. This is protection of compromise from human or natural disaster. The patron data is stored in the application logic, which is on a web-based browser. A weekly backup would be performed automatically by the system, and a monthly backup would be done by a staff member onto a physical hard drive to ensure that patron data is kept. There would also need to be an element of physical security in addition to the technological aspects, as there's also physical copies of payroll and patron information that is kept on file at the library. There's also a lot of technology in the library that would be at risk of being stolen. The security measures would be an upgrade in security cameras, as well as some kind of alarm-based security system. Currently, the library has been updated to a 24-camera system, which is a large step up from the previous 9-camera system, which was only focused on key areas of the library. Now, pretty much every corner is covered, which is a necessary thing. In conclusion, to bring Whitley County Public Library into the 21st century, with the implementation of these changes to the various aspects of the Whitley County Public Library, there's no doubt that it would certainly be able to find itself updated and fit for the 21st century. An increase of foot traffic is the ultimate goal, and this would certainly allow for it to happen. The overall simplification and modernization of the library will benefit both staff and public alike.